hope everybody's enjoying their dinner, and encourage you to please keep eating. And as we get started here with the program, I had several people come up to me and say, so you're the tournament director and you do this the whole year, all year round, just you. And I said, well, I mean, I kind of just steer the ship. I got a lot of help, and I got 1,800 volunteers that work 25,000 hours. Those volunteers have actually adopted a peer-to-peer fundraising program called Hours for St. Jude, and they're knocking on the door of $1 million since it started 6 years ago, which we're really excited about. And then we have a host of other people that help us out through tournament week, and we have a volunteer sales club, we have vendors, we have partners like you all. And then we have good friends in the community. And the next person I want to introduce for you guys to hear from is our general chairman. And I guess I've been working with Jack Sammons now for, I guess, about 7 or 8 years. And I know PGA Tour, we have the best general chairman here in Memphis. So there's no doubt about that. So I want y'all to sit back, and you might want to grab a drink because this usually doesn't take, it's usually a little bit longer than normal, but Jack's going to come up here and share some stories and some wisdom with everybody. So thank you, Jack.
It's good to be back. This is not vodka. Gin. Everybody wants to mess with me about not knowing how to spell brevity and succinct and all these other big words. I could spell delicatessen all day long. It's a little longer, okay? But I try to go by every table and look y'all in the eye and say thank you and say welcome to Memphis. Memphis is a great town. It's a warm city. The people just personify Southern hospitality. So we are delighted that you folks from Minneapolis or Minnesota and Little Rock and Dallas and Houston and all these great area codes around the country that are here tonight that have been involved in another fundraiser for St. Jude that ultimately got you here. We really are thrilled that you're here. You know, I drove in the gates tonight. I'm not a prepared speaker. I'm scared to death to get in front of people with a speech. So I talk from the heart, but I was reminded as I came through the gate, I said, Lord have mercy. 1955, September, my mama birthed the most handsome baby ever come out of this town, right over there on this campus. It was called St. Joseph Hospital. Now, as my daddy said, St. Joseph's no longer in business. I put them out of business. But they tore that building down, and it's now part of this incredible campus we call St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. But moved down the path a few years, 1964, not long after President Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas. One of my good friends that I grew up with, part of the Gaddis family, which was one of the founders of this hospital with their cousin and their hero, Danny Thomas, Danny bought a piece of the Miami Dolphins. Now, today, if you bought a piece of the Miami Dolphins, it'd be like buying Kansas City. But back then, you know, you could probably put it on your credit card. And so Danny invited me and my little buddy Joe Gaddis and I, we flew on an airplane for the first time. We flew to Miami-Dade and got to go down to the stadium, Orange Bowl Stadium, where the Miami Dolphins had their training camp. They gave us this T-shirt that said Dolphins on it. I think I wore it till I was out of college. It was about this big, you know. I was so proud of that. But I remember going to training camp, and Danny Thomas was there. And he had a cigar big as a baby's arm. I mean, that thing was about this long. And he sat down with us, and he attempted to inspire these two young leaders, two young men that, you know, were just aghast at Danny Thomas because we'd seen him on television. We knew he was an American hero. And he told us that the difference between givers and takers, he said, takers usually eat better, but the givers sleep better. My daddy told me one time, he said, son, you go to any bank in the world, you walk in the lobby of the bank, and there'll be a table. It can be in Ecru, Mississippi, or Shanghai, or Miami, Florida. Same thing. You go in, there's a table in the middle of that big lobby, and there'll be two types of paper. There'll be deposit slips and withdrawal slips. And they got all kinds of accounts. But pretty much a general rule is at the bank, they're not going to let you make a withdrawal till you make it a deposit. Now, this room tonight is filled with a group of people that have made a life of making deposits. This little hospital, you saw pictures there in 1962, was just one building. The annual budget was $1 million a year. Today, it's a multi-billion-dollar enterprise that's curing lives for children and adults around the world. But it's only because of people like you. And I want, as general chairman of this event, I want to welcome you to Memphis and thank you from the bottom of my heart for what you've done to make a difference in people's lives. Last year, I played on a Wednesday and not in the Monday event. JD had me as the first alternate in case somebody got infirmed. So my buddy Pete Pranica, the voice of the Memphis Grizzlies, who will be the NBA champs in 4 years after this great draft that we're about to pull, Pete stumbled he stumbled on something Patrick called a kidney stone. Kidney stones are not a pleasant experience at 5 in the morning when you've got a 9 o'clock tea time. So they asked, JD said, all right, you're up. So I jump in a cart and I run out there, and a young gentleman from Louisiana by the name of Bradley Hamilton is quite a golfer himself, handsome young man as well. And I rolled up and I said, what y'all doing? And he said, we're waiting on our celebrity. I said, son, he just arrived. He just arrived. So here we are. I've been asked tonight to introduce a great American, a man that might not be tall, y'all, but he is large in his presence and the effect that he has on one of the great companies of the world, FedEx. This gentleman is named Dan Mullally. He and his wife Shirley have an event every year on the campus of the TPC Southwind, and they raise hundreds of thousands of dollars for the hospital. Dan is the epitome of good health. He gets on a treadmill every day and runs it till the thing burns up. I use treadmills to hang my suits when I stumble in, after consuming Bombay gin. So anyway, I heard the story the day after Christmas that my good friend Dan and Shirley's husband had suffered from a heart attack while on the treadmill. I sent him an immediate text, told you so. Okay? Well, anyway, a week later, the pipes freeze in my house, January 2nd. My house pipes, my wife calls, she's all freaking out, you know, crying and everything. I thought maybe American Express had turned her down at Costco. I didn't know what was going on. So anyway, I'm like, what's up, honey, what's up? And she's trying to tell me that the water is just flowing through the house. She opened the front door and then just furniture's floating out. And I'm trying to tell her how to turn this valve off. That didn't work very well. Ultimately, we had to move to another house. So we rent an upstairs duplex. Hell, at 62 years old, I really didn't think I was going to live in another duplex, but sure enough, I did. But it was fully furnished. All I had to do was bring my clothes, my whiskey, and my dog. And my wife could come too if she wanted to. So anyway, we go to this upstairs duplex. Oh, Daryl's over here going, he's going to be here all night. So anyway, I run up and I put the key in the door every day, twice a day. I'd go up the steps. And I noticed when I put the key in the door, I'd just a little bit taxed, you know, from my lungs. I said, heck, I'm 62, I'm old, and I'm fat. That's supposed to happen. So Palm Sunday, I'm at the FedEx St. Jude Classic offices working, and I look out the window, and there's this handsome gentleman on the driving range. And I look out there, I said, Lord have mercy, there's Dan Mullally. I'm going to go out there and give him a hug. So I go out there and embrace my buddy Dan, say, Shirley and I are so glad that you're doing well, and all of us in this organization are honored that you're going to be back to host this event this year. And I said, but Dan, did you have any symptoms? He said, Jack, it's the darndest thing. I was on the treadmill every day for 40 years. But you know, I'd come off 18 green, go up to the top there where the cart path is, stick my putter in the bag, take a deep breath. He said, I'd go up steps, and I'd get up the top of the steps, and I'd just be a little bit taxed. Man, I turned flush, you know, I get a little upset, a little nervous, like, uh-oh. And I said, well, really? I said, Dan, that's happening to me. So Dan says, son, you need to go see my cardiologist tomorrow. So first thing next morning, I called Dr. McDonald. The good lady at Dr. McDonald's office tells me, Dr. McDonald has not taken a new patient in 7 years. I said, that's God's way of telling me, you're old and fat and you're okay, don't worry about it. So I chose not to do anything. My buddy called me, and I told him the story. He goes, oh, no, you got to go today. He was an executive at the hospital. He gets me an appointment. I'd just been to Mayo Clinic, with all due respect to my friends from Minnesota, and they told me in December, just 3 months before, that I was in great shape, no problem after the treadmill test. So the doc looks at all the Mayo data. He says, you're fine, no problem. So he says, but we did just buy this new machine that we do need some new customers on. And I go take this test, and sure enough, I got 90% blockage, and I have to go onto the knife, and they operate on me. But I live to tell about it, and just thrilled to be here. So I took my St. Christopher statue off my dashboard, and I now have the cutest statue of Dan Mullally right up there on my new life. So ladies and gentlemen, the #1 salesman in the world for FedEx, Mr. Dan Mullally.
You get a hug, brother.
I got to get a hug, brother. God bless, baby. Love you, man. Yes, sir.
And he got off light because he just had a couple of stints. He was in and out of the hospital in a day and a half. Things are just not right. You drink that much, you should have to stay that long, you know? I mean, it's just not right. You know, it's not fair, but we're glad Jack is back, and it's really a blessing that we're able to communicate like this and do that. So it has been a kind of a strange few months for me, and I feel great, and everything is good, and back at it. But, you know, I've been affiliated with St. Jude for a good amount of time right now, and sometimes you kind of take this kind of for granted. And you don't know the people that go through the effects of St. Jude. And you don't know the children. And all of a sudden, I get to meet the children. But better than meeting the children, I meet regular people that all of a sudden have a child that's at St. Jude. Like my builder. His grandson, Griffin, was at St. Jude. Okay? Like my new director down in Dallas, her niece was at St. Jude. And I see Calvin at St. Jude. And I see all these great kids at St. Jude. I see Tyler and Alyssa. How about this? Tyler and Alyssa, they're cousins. They're cousins. Is that fair? They're cousins? They have to be at St. Jude because they have cancer. And so I see all of these great children, and I'm like, wowed. And my wife and I are wowed, and it's unbelievable what St. Jude does for them. But you know what? Last year at my fundraiser, we had a girl, a patient at St. Jude, who sent me a video. It's on my phone, by the way. I look at it at least monthly. And if I feel a little bit out of whack, I look at it daily. So this little girl, Kenley, who's missing one leg, texted me from the hospital, and she said, Mr. Dan and Miss Shirley, I'm going to be at your house tomorrow. Blows me the biggest kiss you ever got in your life, man. I'm just shaking. It was so special, and sure enough, she came to my house the next day, and she played with the dog and sat outside, and it was just phenomenal. And 2 weeks later, she passed. and 2 weeks later she passed. And I get emotional just thinking about it, okay? And the fact is, our work is never done here. We can never give up. As we always talk about, as Danny Thomas has always said, no child should die of this, and we have to keep fighting. It is a fight that we all pursue, that we're all passionate about, and it's so great to see you here. And I'm so proud to be with a great company like FedEx that has sponsored this tournament since 1986, the first active sponsorship we ever got involved with, that has been so great for St. Jude. It has been so great for the city of Memphis, but now it's beyond that. It's beyond that. It's the globe now that we're talking about. That's what FedEx has done with St. Jude. That's what St. Jude is doing around the world, and we should be so excited about that, and trust me, I am. It is thrilling to be associated with two brands like that, two brands both doing great things in the community and doing great things for children. It is phenomenal. And I'm telling you that I am just as excited about next year as we welcome the World Golf Championship into Memphis. So that the top 50 stinking golfers around the world can see what happens at the greatest children's hospital in the world, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. And with that, I am so proud to introduce my friend, business partner, great associate, just a fabulous man, the CEO, President and CEO of ALSEC, Mr. Rick Shadyac.
Isn't Dan amazing? Dan's awesome, right? He and Shirley have lots of us over to his house all week, and we're excited to do it again and raise money for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. And then how about Jack Sammons, right? He's something. Y'all should have heard him talk before he had a heart surgery. You thought he was funny tonight? Because he really wasn't drinking tonight. So Jack's a great guy and someone we're blessed to have as our chairman. Daryl, thank you for all you do for us, man. You've done a fantastic job since taking over for a legend, and you had big shoes to fill, and they're bigger size even now, bud, thanks to you. That's how far you've taken this tournament, so congratulations. So I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. I'm not going to tell jokes. I'm going to be your serious part of the evening tonight because I want to talk to you a little bit about St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. And Daryl and Jack and everyone at the PGA Tour and FedEx, on behalf of all of us at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital and ALSAC, we want to say thank you. Thank you for everything that you do for us every single year. I think about it, kind of like a foursome. It's an amazing foursome, isn't it? FedEx, St. Jude, Memphis, and the PGA Tour. And we've been at it now for almost 68 years in various iterations. When you think about it, it started back in 1960. And just think about the history that we've made and the moments that we've been able to experience here. We've had legendary champions from Greg Norman and Lee Trevino and Gary Player. We had iconic moments like Al Geiberger's round to 59 and President Ford playing in the Pro-Am, hitting a hole-in-one. Some pretty cool stuff has happened on this course. And, over the decades, there's been tremendous dedication to St. Jude. And because of folks like you and the incredible generosity of St. Jude, this tournament has generated over $38 million to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. And, that doesn't count the awareness that's created for our incredible mission. And, every single year, for how many years running, JD? 3-4 years running, the PGA Tour has picked us as having the best charity integration of any tournament on the entire PGA Tour. So that's how ingrained, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital is into this tournament. And this year, yes, this is the last FedEx St. Jude Classic, and we're going to celebrate it. But what's coming next, folks, is going to be absolutely amazing. So thinking about the top 50 golfers of the world coming here and learning about St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, thinking about the entertainment opportunities that we're going to have for all of these folks like you all. The price might be a little higher next year, just got to warn you all. But we're super excited starting in 2019. And all I can say is FedEx delivers once again, right? Amazing, absolutely amazing. So I want to talk to y'all a little bit about defiance tonight. And you know, when I think about defiance, I think about Fred Smith. And think about how FedEx began, with Fred Smith dreaming large, defying the odds, creating not only a world-class global logistics company, but one of the most generous and charitable companies, not in America, in the world. You know, FedEx is a company that unites and connects the world. But I can tell you firsthand that really FedEx is all about the heart. And the heart of FedEx really lies right here in Memphis, and all the things that they do for this incredible city that we have here, and also for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Mr. Smith, Mr. Mullally, all the executives at FedEx, Zach, you guys are absolutely incredible partners. Thank you for all that you do for us. Thank you for letting us tell our story. There would be no World Golf Championships in Memphis, Tennessee without FedEx. There would be no FedEx St. Jude Classic without FedEx, because we almost lost it a few years ago, but FedEx said that was not going to happen. And then the other dreamers that we should think about, literally, is one that's near and dear to my heart, and that's Dr. Martin Luther King. And you know, it's been a historic year here in Memphis, because this year we marked the 50th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. King, sadly right here in this city. And many people don't know this. While Jack Salmons may have been born on this campus, Dr. Martin Luther King breathed his last breath into the air of this campus, because he was brought to St. Joseph's Hospital, literally just a couple hundred yards from here, which is where it sits on our campus today. And I think about that all the time, that he breathed his last breath into the air of St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, and that he really is living through a lot of our patients and what we stand for here. And you know, I often, over the course of the past 5 months, have reflected on his tremendous legacy and talk about a person that defied the norms of the time, as he really sought an America that was true to its own ideals, that all men and women are created equal. Dreaming for that day for his little children, his 4 little kids, that they would one day live in a nation where they would not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. And I think about that a lot, especially given the course of the events over the last couple of months. And I reflect on the fact about how far we still have to go. And then we also should reflect on the defiance of 2 amazing men that helped establish St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, Danny Thomas and Dr. Donald Pinkel. They defied all expectations to create St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. And think about how revolutionary their idea was, that they would treat all kids, regardless of the color of their skin, regardless of their economic circumstance, welcome them into a segregated city, take care of all of them, and then say that no family would ever receive a bill from St. Jude, not for the cost of treatment, travel, housing, or food. Because all Danny Thomas and Dr. Pinkel wanted them to worry about was helping their child survive cancer. That was done 56 years ago, folks. And for 56 straight years, because of people like you, we've held true to that founding ideal. I reflect on their defiance when skeptics told them that they would fail. Friends cautioned them not to even do it. Don't even try. Cure childhood cancer? That's impossible. Remember, back in those days, things were so dire that doctors told moms and dads whose kids had cancer to celebrate half birthdays because they wouldn't make it to their next birthday. Instead, they defied. You know, defiance is something that we know all about at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. We saw it in our founder, we saw it in the first CEO of St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, and we see it in our patients every single day. We see it in their families, because when a child has cancer, the family has cancer. And we see it in those children whose bodies are hurting, but they're battling but their spirits are untouched by this debilitating disease. Defiant like Calvin, who 2 years ago was diagnosed with a non-cancerous yet very aggressive brain tumor, one that could cost him his life. Calvin underwent 4 different brain surgeries in 4 months, one a month for 4 consecutive months. And then after he recovered, he needed 2 months of radiation treatment. And his mom said that Calvin never complained. This is what Calvin said, quote, "When I woke up out of surgery, when I had to do that radiation, I was actually happy because it was just amazing to be alive." You know, Calvin's brand of defiance is pretty amazing too. It's joyful. You see, this young man just loves to dance. Last year, he danced on the stage at the St. Jude Jam during this very FedEx St. Jude Classic. He was just 7 months removed from his final brain surgery, and more recently from radiation therapy. The face of defiance on Calvin, he wears it with an irrepressible smile. This kid is constantly smiling. He goes down the halls and fist bumps the doctors, and he gives nicknames to his nurses, like, you'll love this, guys, Chicken Wing, Cookie Jam, Candy Crush, and Jackie Chan. You see, it's not just Calvin's smile that's irrepressible, it's every bit of him. So he refused to accept any limitation. And that brain tumor wasn't going to stop him from dancing on that stage last year at the FedEx St. Jude Classic. And brain cancer wasn't going to stop my friend Will either. Will refused to accept repeating a year of school after he had been diagnosed with a brain tumor. He defied it, completed his schoolwork, and he did it whenever he felt strong enough to do his schoolwork, but did not miss any of his school. He defiantly rejected the idea that he would never play golf or basketball again. Instead, he pushed through, enduring lots of challenges in his life, working with a physical therapist, working on endurance, working on his balance, making sure he felt like an athlete and not a kid. Will was brave. He was joyful. He was selfless. He even defied the idea that the attention should be focused on him as a cancer patient. You see, Will battled this for a long time, and he was a lot older than a lot of the other patients here. And he was a lot more concerned about their welfare than his welfare. And I can tell you, so many patients said to me that they looked up to Will because he was such a resilient guy. Will was a true inspiration to me. Will and I had the opportunity to play golf together. Will was a good golfer. I'm not. He played in this Pro-Am and in many other golf tournaments for St. Jude. You know, oftentimes he would play as the pro when we would do the Beat the Pro hole. And Will was the pro, and very few golfers ever beat Will. And he even attended our concert last year, 2 years ago, and played with Big and Rich, John Rich, and there's Big Kenny right there, and actually had the opportunity to play with Robbie Krieger because he absolutely loved to play guitar. But tragically, despite all the efforts to save Will passed away just about a year ago. And I will tell you, I miss him every day. And I think about him all the time, especially during this week, because Will came to this tournament a lot, and he and I had an opportunity to spend a lot of private time together. His mom would actually let him hang out with me a little bit, and we would talk about life, and we would talk about what it was like to have cancer. And folks, that's why St. Jude will never stop trying to defy the odds for all kids. Not when an amazing young man like Will dies before he gets to graduate from college. Not when 20% of the kids still diagnosed with cancer pass away. Not when 180,000 to 240,000 kids around the globe are diagnosed with cancer. And many of them, 20% of them, will survive. 80% will pass away. And in the developing world, the results are even worse. They're around 10%. These are the odds, and we collectively must stand in defiance of them. And that's why your support, your presence here today means so much to us. Since we opened our doors back in 1962, we've sought to cure leukemia, a disease deemed incurable. We've taken on other devastating diseases, brain tumors and sickle cell disease and AIDS. In a time when many other doctors were turning away from pediatric cancer, Dr. Pinkel and Danny Thomas defied the odds. And look what they accomplished. They took an incurable disease, acute lymphoblastic leukemia, that had a survival rate of 4%, and turned it into a survival rate of 94% by defying the odds. And we're going to continue to follow their lead, aren't we? Because despite all that progress, cancer remains the leading cause of death by disease in U.S. kids today. And that's why we've begun construction on a brand new $412 million research tower that, God willing, will house the labs that will lead to the discoveries that will absolutely cure childhood cancer. It's why we're increasing the number of kids treated here at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, and why we're trying to double the number of kids enrolled on St. Jude-led clinical protocols all across the country. We opened the Red Frog Events Proton Therapy Center, the world's only proton therapy center dedicated solely to kids in all of America. We've treated over 300 kids on this cutting-edge piece of technology, including our friend Calvin. And we recently launched the St. Jude Cloud. This is an online data service. So it's a sharing and collaboration site where we've uploaded all the information that we learned from our Pediatric Cancer Genome Project. And we've opened it up to doctors and scientists around the world so that they can use that data to better accurately diagnose their patients all around the world. And then that's all. Isn't that cool? Yes. And St. Jude was just recently named by the World Health Organization the first collaborating center for childhood cancer around the globe. And we're going to partner with the WHO to develop strategies that ultimately strengthen global resources and try to speed the cure all around the globe. And just last week, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital announced a $100 million investment focused on education, capacity building, and research to create a global health system that will attempt to tackle what is still incurable outside of the United States and make it curable. And we do that, folks, because of you. And St. Jude is poised to get doctors all across the globe together to defeat childhood cancer. So that's how we're going to try to save more and more kids. That's how we're going to try to defy the odds. And we're going to refuse to accept the idea that this is impossible, to take what we know is a curable disease in the United States and take it outside of the boundaries of the United States. If it can happen here, it can happen all around the globe. We will follow the example of Calvin and Will and Danny Thomas and Dr. Pinkel and defy those odds and bring those cures to kids around the globe. And folks, that's why this is such a special week and such a special event. It's why the best golfers in the world come to Memphis, Tennessee, and they also get to share the course with St. Jude patients. So tomorrow, you're going to be playing golf, and the pros are going to be playing golf in the Danny Thomas Pro-Am with 5 St. Jude patients, and I think they're all here, and I want to ask them to stand. Allie, there's Allie right there. Ben, where's Ben? Is Ben here? There's Ben. Bradley. Where's Bradley? Right there. Jackson. There's Jackson. There's Jackson. That's Zach. There's Jackson. And we got Zach over here too. So we got 5 of y'all. Man, I look at you 2 guys over there, and I've known you guys since you were like this high, and now you're taller than me. There's just something wrong here. There's something wrong, but that's just awesome. You guys, I can't wait to see you out on the course tomorrow. So, folks, welcome to the FedEx St. Jude Classic Week. It's going to be a great week, and we thank you so much for joining us as we continue to make this just one of our most remarkable events. And we welcome you all back next year for the World Golf Championships, which is going to be called the FedEx St. Jude Invitational. So y'all come back. So JD, you want to help me with this? You want to help me with this? Okay, so now it's my privilege to introduce a special guest speaker tonight, Ken Agard. His daughter's going to be one of the patients playing in the Pro-Am tomorrow, but Ken and I have become pretty good friends. This is a CBS Sports executive who has just taken on the mantle of leadership at St. Jude at CBS Sports and just done so many remarkable things for us, including our partnership with CBS Sports. We are, thanks to Ken, we'll get talked about a whole lot during college golf season in September, as well as pro football. Did I say golf? I got golf on my mind. College football in September and pro football. So thank you, Kenny, for that. You also helped us raise a ton of money. But Ken, before I ask you to come up here and share your story, we wanted to give you a little special thank you, okay? So last year during the FedEx St. Jude Classic, the Commercial Appeal newspaper ran a really cool article about you and Allie and your entire family. And your wife is Emerald's here, right? Is Emerald here? There's Emerald. There's his wife right there. And so they wrote a story profiling the Agard family and the journey that they've been on. And Jeff Calkins, who's one of our best sports writers, one of our best writers, period, wrote this as his headline: "A 14-year-old patient named Allie proves once again this tournament is not just about golf." And this article goes on to talk about how many people have been inspired by your daughter, Emerald and Ken. And Allie, you are an amazing young woman, and I've seen you play golf before, and I know you're going to kick a bunch of these guys' butts, and I can't wait for that to happen tomorrow. But Ken, we have this little special thing for you, and I promise you we'll ship it back. But this is for you from us to say thank you for all you do for us. That's the article, and framed with your beautiful daughter right there, and wait till you guys see her swing a golf club. Please welcome Ken Agard.
JD, you didn't tell me I had to follow these three guys. It's a tough act to follow. Now it's time, though, to basically tell you our story. Speaking of Allie, 4 years ago, Allie was 11. Like most kids her age, she had so much going on. She had just entered 5th grade in middle school. She was a Girl Scout, played soccer, swimming, and clarinet. Allie always slept well, never complained about anything. She was smart and healthy. She was too sick to go swimming one day, and my wife Emerald took her to the pediatrician. Virus, we were told. Allie went right back to her routine. A few days later, Allie was sick again. Hunter, our dog, would not leave Allie's side. Emerald called me and said she was heading to the ER. I had a bad feeling about this. I told her I would be home in a few hours and to wait for me. At the ER, Dr. Chang skipped the usual EKG and said the MRI is open. Let's do a scan. As we walked back into the ER, all the nurses and the doctors were just standing there, staring at us. Everything in me had to stay calm. Dr. Chang asked Emerald and I to come and view the scan. It was a tumor the size of a tennis ball on the back part of Allie's skull. What? How could this happen? Within 3 hours, we were in a neurosurgeon's office at Hackensack Hospital in New Jersey. Upon seeing Allie's MRI, Dr. Arnold Fried wanted to operate immediately. Following surgery, Dr. Fried came to our room and said surgery was a success. The tumor was 100% removed. We asked, was it malignant? He couldn't say and would take a few days to determine, but he thought it was a medulla. We asked, what is a medulla? 4 days later, we were wheeled out of ICU and entered the oncology children's ward. Soon after, we found out what a medulla was. It was a medulloblastoma, the most common of malignant children's brain tumors. We were told it is aggressive, fast-growing, and usually confined to the back of the skull, and cranial spinal fluid, which basically can affect everything from thinking, talking, walking, breathing, you name it. We were like deer in the headlights. After our shock wore off, we knew we had a fight on our hands. We looked for advice, and with the help of one of my clients, Major League Baseball, and their cancer awareness program, we were led to cancer specialists at hospitals like Mass Gen, UCLA, Duke, Emory, CHOP in Philadelphia. Through friends, family, and research, we were able to find and speak with other cancer families. We found all roads led us to one doctor, one place, and that doctor was Dr. Amar Gajar, and that place was St. Jude. Within days, Emerald and Allie were in Memphis. I followed, bringing results from a spinal tap taken at Hackensack that turned out to be positive. They had found cancer cells in Allie's spine. Now what? Dr. Gajar spent most of the day with us, retesting and explaining his thoughts for protocol, which differed from Hackensack and others. Emerald and I had to make a call. We had never been to St. Jude. We knew little about them other than donating dollars at the grocery store every Christmas. But now we were able to look and walk around this incredible hospital, all these families with kids with cancer. To our surprise, it all seemed so hopeful walking the halls of St. Jude. Dr. Gajar was so low-key, so informative, so knowledgeable, so collaborative, and so honest with us and Allie. He never discussed even the hardest of conversations without Allie present. It suddenly made sense to put our faith in Dr. Gajar and St. Jude. There was risk. St. Jude is always years ahead of others, and that puts them on the leading edge. Allie would be part of a study like every child at St. Jude, but we could see the building on the name was the St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Glad to hear there's another building coming, Rick. After Allie had 6 weeks of intense proton beam radiation in a new facility in Somerset, New Jersey, using Dr. Gajar's protocol, we moved to Memphis in March of 2014 to do 7 cycles of chemo at St. Jude. We cannot say enough about Dr. Gajar. We went to St. Jude first and foremost for the medical care they provide. For anyone not familiar, radiation kills the cancer and chemo stops cancer from multiplying and dividing. Our daughter did 7 cycles of chemo after 30 rounds of proton radiation. By the time you get to the 4th round of chemo, you wonder if she'll be able to get back up again. And you cannot proceed to the next round until blood counts are back up to where they need to be. Collateral damage is concerning. This war being waged against cancer is happening in your child's body. And then there's the immune system. Being at its weakest, something as simple as fever can be lethal. The medical staff at St. Jude can best be described as an army, ready and able to treat your child. Blood counts at St. Jude take less than 30 minutes for results to come back. That is lightning fast. They have ENT services available on the premises, which Allie needed. The hospital and pharmacy are open 24/7. Twice after our first chemo cycle, while staying a couple of blocks away on campus, Emerald had to wheel Allie over in the middle of the night for fever, and each time she became inpatient. One time, Allie was admitted to the pediatric intensive care unit for extremely low blood pressure. Shortly, the alarm started going off, and suddenly nurses came crashing into the room, seemingly from out of nowhere. They had to get fluids into Allie quickly. They saved her life that night. During our long-term stay, we lived at Target House, where our care, housing, transportation, and food was no cost to us. Target House is a place where families can gather with friends and other families that are in similar circumstances. It is a place all can relax as well as be entertained by frequent celebrity visitors. Target House was truly our home. Today, Allie is now 15 years old, and we are very lucky. She remains cancer-free. We believe it is because of St. Jude and Dr. Gajar. It has been 3.5 years since completing chemo. Allie now returns to St. Jude twice a year, down from 4 times for MRIs, checkups, and evaluations, all again paid for by St. Jude. Allie was here this past April for a checkup. As part of a study, we hope Allie's success will help others. Allie is now in high school. She made the varsity golf team as a freshman. She played in the Pro-Am last June. I caddied. And she will play again. Actually, I'd like one more time, Allie and her mother, Emerald, please stand up. And please thank Dr. Gajar. He couldn't be with us tonight, but hopefully he's going to be on the course. In 1960, when Danny Thomas opened St. Jude, Allie would have had a 10% chance to survive. In a large part, because of St. Jude, she now has better than a 90% chance, as Rick mentioned. Thank you for letting me tell you our story. The work that St. Jude does is so important. They are doing God's work, saving our precious children. God bless Danny Thomas and all those that carry on his good work. Thank you.